Achieving a gorgeous grin from home isn't a total mystery with Byte Clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all of your sleuthing friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Byte Clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces. Plus, they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly minisode where we sort of dig into the things we've been watching or playing or whatever the case may be. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
Yeah, we still haven't figured out this intro stuff yet for the Little Cuts.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everybody. And if you are listening to this on Friday, you can watch us be imposters tonight on Among Us with the fellows at Certified Forgotten and some other guests.
Yes, it was so fun last time. I drank too much wine. I will not be doing that this time. I will not be consuming 4 glasses of wine.
Wine hangovers are the worst.
I can't even describe to you how bad it was. It was like, I know wine does this to me. But yes, come join us. It's very fun. We all yell at each other in a fun way.
We also, we had some technical issues that I think we're working out this time. We're going to use Zoom instead of Discord. So I think things will be a little bit better this time around because we've gotten some of the kinks. I hope, fingers crossed, worked out that it will be a little bit better. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Next time, hopefully this time I'll be an imposter because I was so pissed that I never got to be one, even though everyone seemed to think I was one every single fucking game.
You're not better.
No, not at all. So with that, what have you been watching, Mary Beth?
Okay, so I have gone down a massive Koji Shigarashi hole. He directed Norio the Curse. He directed A Record of Sweet Murder. He directed Occult. He's basically like a pretty prolific Japanese filmmaker, and he is the premier Japanese found footage person, but like, if not one of the best found footage filmmakers in the world. He actually, this weekend, Steve actually was like, "Hey, I heard of this movie, Occult. Do you want to watch it?" I was like, "Yes, I do. It's been on my watch list." And so we watched it, and it's so weird and kind of gross in a good way. And so then I just decided to watch 2 more of his movies. I watched Occult. I watched Norio the Curse, which is like one of the best. One is objectively one of the best found footage movies ever made.
I really need to watch it.
It's so good. It's so weird, and it's more about like building tension through these interconnecting stories. Which is really fascinating. It's like it's a creeping tension that he's really good at making. And he's done a couple other found footage movies I haven't watched yet, but he did Record of Sweet Murder, which is a Korean co-production. So I watched that one, Occult, and Noroi. And they are just masterpieces of cinema. They're weird.
Really? They all are?
I love them all.
And they're all found footage?
They're all found footage. He does more than found footage, but I've only seen his found footage films. So my favorite was Occult, and if I had to like rank them, it would be Occult as number 1, Noroi as number 2, and number 3 is A Record for Sweet Murder. But it's like very hard to do that because A Record for Sweet Murder is just a little bit more like graphic. And not that I care about that. There were some moments where I was like, this seems unnecessary. But like the payoff is great. And so he's just so good at making weird fucking movies that are like really, really engaging and suck you in and kind of spit you out afterward and be like, how you feel now? So those 3 were really good. You can watch sorry guys, on Shudder, and then Occult is actually free on YouTube, and Record for Sweet Murder is on Amazon Prime.
Oh wow! You know, I've wanted to watch Nori, but like I think the one time I did start watching it, I realized that it was like a 2-hour movie, and
it's almost 2 hours long.
I didn't have the mental capacity at that time. I didn't think to like watch it, but it's been on my list to watch it, so I need to dig into that.
It goes by, I mean, it went by really fast for me. I think the storytelling is fascinating, and I think it's enough to keep you engaged. But again, I am biased because I love found footage movies, so I might also just get more like quickly engaged with those stories. But what's really depressing is like none of his movies are available on Blu-ray right now. I tried to find Noroi on Blu-ray, and there's like one version that's like $100, if that, and it's like Region 3, and then Occult doesn't have a Blu-ray release, and it's like, I'm hoping that this means that like sooner rather than later, one of the boutiques will pick them up and do some releases, because his movies are just absolutely phenomenal. And like The Curse came out in 2005, so it was using techniques that Paranormal Activity took and used.
Yeah.
It's actually, I mean, it's like from my nerdy ass perspective, it's actually really fascinating to see like where that film kind of exists in the in the void between Blair Witch Project and Cloverfield / Paranormal Activity, like in American found footage. And I think Noroi should get more attention. And it does in smaller circles, but I think like it should be up there as like one of the most important and influential found footage movies. And I mean, it's not in English, but who gives a shit? But I think a lot of people focus on found footage as like an inherently American phenomenon.
Right.
And it sure as shit isn't. And yeah.
I mean, people should just look to like Rec. I mean, you know, it does exist out of the United States.
It really does. And some of like, there's some really, and Gonjiam, like we preached that movie to the heavens. Like,
hell yeah, we did.
So.
And do. So you said Cult was like your favorite?
Occult is my favorite. So Occult is
what is it about?
What is it about? It's one of those movies that like it starts one way. So basically Koji Shirarashi plays himself as a filmmaker who is exploring this stabbing that happened 3 years ago that was like completely inexplicable. This guy killed 2 people, injured 1, and then promptly jumped off of a cliff into the ocean. And he becomes fascinated with this case and to understand it. And it starts off as him talking to people who are affected and kind of like learning about what was going on that day. And it blossoms into this absolutely bizarre like web of like paranormal Lovecraftian stuff. I don't want to spoil it because it's just like, it's very weird, but it has some of the best ghost imagery I've ever seen. So
really, it's
creative. At least the ending shot is really awful, and I wish it wasn't in the movie because it's just like kind of cheesy. But regardless of that, the movie had me like my jaw dropped. It was so creepy, and like again, Shirarashi is so good at the tension building, and there aren't jump scares. And again, I love jump scares. If like, you know, we talked about that, but his movies are just so tense and they're so good. So Occult is on YouTube for free streaming, and I would recommend you watch it. And the subtitles are good.
Oh, good.
Which is important. I was a little bit worried about it, but the subtitles are good on that one. So it's definitely worth a watch. And it's like an hour and a half. So
yeah, it doesn't look that long.
It's a movie that like sucks you in, and it's like you're falling into a rabbit hole. His movies are like Alice in Wonderland, I guess is a way to put it. Like you're falling into this rabbit hole of like information and go deeper and deeper and deeper, and everything gets so complicated but somehow comes together, and it's just like such an enjoyable experience. I mean, it's fucked up. They're not enjoyable is probably the word that most people wouldn't use, but I enjoyed the experiences very much. So
I'm gonna have to. It's Noro. Gosh, I don't even know how to pronounce it.
Noroi
has been on my list to watch for a while. I need to just sit down and watch it.
Yes, I recommend. I big recommend. Again, the final shot. The final shot in that movie is absolutely creepy.
I mean, that's what, it's always like whenever someone is talking about found footage and they talk about the United States ones, that one always comes up. Like, have you seen this movie?
Yeah, and I'm surprised. I'm bummed I hadn't seen it sooner, but I'm glad I have now because boy, oh boy, like.
Was this your first time watching it?
Yes, it was my first time watching it. It was been on my list forever, like you. Yeah. And because I watched a cult, I was like, all right, we're just all weekend. We're just going in deep.
I love that though.
So it was great. Like I think he is one of my all-time favorite directors right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So he's pretty good.
Awesome.
I need to watch his other stuff that's not found footage, but like
he's done a good number.
He's done a lot of movies. He did Carved, the Slitmouth Woman, which I wasn't like the biggest fan of, but it's about an urban legend in Japan about a woman who has like her mouth cut open and she carries around a big pair of scissors and kills kids.
Oh, yeah. That seems like really nice. He did Sadako versus Kayako.
Oh yeah, he did. I didn't see that. I think I pretended that wasn't.
Yeah,
I'm not saying all of his movies are whammies. I'm saying the movies that he does that are good are whammies. But sometimes you have a couple. Fouls.
People like that movie. I just think it's silly in the same way that like any like versus movies are. They're not usually my favorite.
Yeah, I agree.
But a lot of people really liked it.
I'll just put the caveat here is I like Koji Shigarashi as a found footage horror filmmaker.
There you go.
There is like the caveat I'll put there, like because I have only really seen his found footage films. So besides those three, for our Giallo journey, everybody, we watched Shock.
Yes, we sure did.
What the fuck was that movie? It was so good.
I loved it.
It's so okay. Just like off the bat, that child Marco deserves every award for being the fucking creepiest child ever to grace a screen.
The creepiest child.
How is he so good at that? What's he like now as an adult?
Is he fine? Is he okay?
Okay. But anyway, besides that.
It's funny because like this is the second, well, he only has two movies, but it's his second movie as the creepy kid because he did Beyond the Door, which I've never seen, but it was released in 1974. And interestingly enough, this movie was in some areas was released again because it's an Italian horror movie and they don't care about continuity. It was released as Beyond the Door 2, and it had no connection to Beyond the Door except that it also had this kid, David Collin Jr., playing the creepy kid.
Italian horror is fascinating to me.
It is, especially during this time where like you have so many movies that are just like, hey, just release it as Terminator 2, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with Terminator 2, or we're going to release this movie and call it Jaws 5. Like, I can't wait. That is going to be a movie I'm going to be talking about on Little Cuts at some point. I need to watch it, but man, Italian horror. But so what is this movie about?
What is this movie about? So this movie is about a woman who has lost her first husband to suicide, and her new husband and her son Marco are moving back into the house where she previously lived with her abusive ex. And so she's like pretty uncomfortable with that because I would be too if you were moving into the house where you lived with your abusive ex-husband. But they move back in and things start getting really weird. I mean, like things falling off the walls, typical haunting stuff. And then it becomes like pretty apparent that the son is possessed by the spirit of the abusive ex-husband, which leads to some very uncomfortable moments.
Oh boy, does it.
Like when he lays on top of his mom and pretends to hump her.
Oh my God, that scene. I was like, I made a note. I was like, Marco is grunting as he holds his mother down. And then I realized what he was doing. And I'm like, oh.
And I was like worried there was going to get worse, and it didn't. But
thank God for that.
But so yeah, it sounds really gross, and it is, but it's really well done, and it's creepy. Like, it's just really creepy.
Yeah, you know, there's a couple transition shots that I really liked in this movie. Of course, there's the one that is like in GIF form across Twitter recently, where, you know, Marco is running, and then all of a sudden it's her husband as he's leaping up at her, which is such a good movie. Even though I knew it was coming,
so good.
It's such a good movie, and that moment has actually been used so many different times in films. In fact, 2 movies more recently. It was in Annabelle, and it was also in The Prodigy, which I haven't seen.
I haven't seen The Prodigy.
Has kind of a similar kind of bent to it with like the creepy kid, and there is a scene, I guess, where the kid's running and then he turns into an adult as he's like attacking the mother. So it's a scene that like that gets used. But another transition scene that really worked for me was there's a moment where Marco is sleeping in bed with his mother, and he's reaching down to her face, and then all of a sudden the hand is a moldy dead hand.
Oh my God.
It's such a good moment.
It was such a good moment. Oh, it was so good. I also like the dream sequences. There's a lot of really good work being done to like kind of blur the lines between reality. And I really enjoyed that. And of course it's an Italian horror movie, so the soundtrack is absolutely gorgeous.
It's a banger.
It's so good. It's like a weird mix of like synth stuff and classical, and it's just a little bit of everything. And it really fits the tone of the movie very well. There's
one song in particular in there, and I actually Shazammed it. I mean, because this was by a group that did the music. It's 3 people, and their group was iLibra. Okay. So I don't know anything about them, but I did Shazam one of the songs because I swear I've heard it before in another movie, and I don't know what it is. So if listeners have heard, it's called Font Suona Piano, and it's by Libra. I swear I have heard that song in another movie, and I don't know what it's from. So if it has been bothering me. So if any listener has heard that and knows what I'm talking about, please let me know. You know, we talk a lot about, well, I guess what we've been learning as we're watching these Italian films is sort of like the way that they have influenced cinema in the United States. And a lot of Americans probably don't realize that. Like, we didn't really touch on it much, but with A Bay of Blood, the one in particular death scene where there's a spike through through a couple that's having sex is literally ripped off and used in Friday the 13th Part 2. And I'm watching this movie, and I can see sort of, not even just with the scare, but like a lot of it kind of reminded me a little bit of this year's Invisible Man. Yeah,
it did. There was a lot of shots that reminded me of Invisible Man, and also of found footage, like the static shots. There were a lot of really interesting lingering static shots that, again, you don't really see used that often in a lot of cinema, but seeing that in Shock is really, really
right. Especially since this is 1977. I mean, yeah. You know,
and like there's a lot of like killer POV as well, which is always like one of my favorite.
I love it.
Techniques. I just love killer POV. It's so cool.
But I was thinking about the structure of Shock in particular to Invisible Man with like, you know, you have like the floating weapon that there's like the box cutter that's like floating there. And you have the ex that committed suicide, quote unquote, and who's trying to drive his ex insane, and the gaslighting and the kind of haunted house feel to it. It just reminded me a lot of like what we would eventually see in this year's Invisible Man, that I'm wondering if there was like homages to it or something. I mean, because it's obviously not the same, but like there's just ideas here that I feel are played out in Invisible Man.
I feel like even if it wasn't a direct homage, I feel like a lot of movies have taken from Shock, and a lot of, like you said, a lot of Italian horror movies have influenced American cinema. So it's like by osmosis, it's probably taken a lot from Shock, but maybe because it's like Leigh Whannell saw it in like another movie, and like there's like the Kevin Bacon effect of like you can get 6 degrees of separation. So I mean, regardless, I think it has had a huge influence on movies like that, and it is every time we watch a new Giallo movie or a new Italian horror movie, I'm just continue to be astounded with how it's shaped so much of horror. It's really amazing, and it's really cool to see that.
Especially considering that it's not American. I mean, it's like seeing other cultures, the way that it has influenced the world, really.
Yeah.
It's cool.
What should we watch next week, Terry?
I was just thinking that.
Should we watch Deep Red?
Oh, I would love to revisit Deep Red.
Cool. I know that one's on Shudder, and that's the one I've been really wanting to watch. So, back to Argento.
Yeah.
Oh, if anyone has any suggestions of what we should be watching, let us know. Tweet
Please
at
do.
me, tweet at Terry, tweet at the podcast, send us an email. I mean, I know I can Google it, obviously, but I'd love to take a couple suggestions from y'all, so it's like a little bit more, interactive. So
Yeah.
watch Deep Red for next week and send us some suggestions of movies. And if you don't, I'm just going to tweet about it. So I'm going to get your suggestions. God damn it.
One thing that I really liked about this movie as well is I think it's Daria Nicolodi's best performance of the movies that I've seen her in. And we are recording this after she unfortunately passed away in November. And it like we didn't plan like on Shock being as sort of like this sort of, happening at the same time as her death, unfortunately. But it feels kind of right that we're talking about probably her best performance in a movie that I've seen. It might be more, but like she's been in movies that we've talked about. She was in Phenomena, and she's in Suspiria. She was married to Dario Argento, and she is Asia Argento's mother. Like she is an important part of Italian horror cinema.
She's huge, and she is just so amazing in this movie. She's beautiful, but also just like commits emotionally to everything, and she is really just like spot on the entire film. So
phenomenal.
It's such a good movie. Terry, what else did you watch, consume, enjoy this week?
Well, I wanted to do because we were watching Shock and because of her passing, I wanted to watch another movie. And so there was one that I watched that was Paganini Horror that she co-wrote and she was also in. And unfortunately it was kind of a drag for me. So I didn't really want to focus on that. And I was kind of afraid that like I wasn't really going to have another movie to talk about that was like that really excited me. And then I saw a fantastic movie that is on Netflix that just came out on Netflix at the end of November that I don't think I've seen a single person talk about. And I stumbled upon it on Netflix by myself, and it is called The Call. And it is a South Korean horror movie.
Okay, you've already got my attention. And
it is it's phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. I was really kind of I guess my one critique is I didn't really like there's like a stinger at the end that I didn't really care for. But so what it is about is there is this woman who is coming back to her family house, and it's like kind of the sad time. Her father passed away years ago. Her mother is dying from some kind of brain aneurysm in her brain, or a tumor in her brain. I can't remember which. And so it's very sad. And she is home, and her cordless phone in the house rings, and she picks it up, and there's a panic woman on the other end that is trying to reach this other girl. And she's like, my mom is trying to kill me. I have her locked up. I don't know what to do. And she's like, so I think you might have the wrong number. She's like, this isn't Soon Yi. And she's like, no. And then she hangs up. And then the next night, the same call happens again. And she's like, my mom is trying to burn me. And then you hear her getting dragged down a hallway. And it's like, what is going on? And you find out that this phone, for whatever reason, is connecting to 20 years in the past. And there's a woman who is the same age as her now that is talking on the same cordless phone that is in this house now, that is reaching out to this woman from 1999 to 2019. And they start to form this little friendship. And then the girl in 1999.
Is it like a friendship over time, or it's like over a couple, like an hours? Like, what's the time span?
Well, it's a very short, like, days time span in the beginning.
Okay, cool.
Because what the girl in 1999 decides is that she's like, hey, maybe I can save your father. Because her father died in 1999 from a gas explosion in her apartment. And so she's like, what if I can save your father? And then it goes from there. And I don't want to say anything else, but as you probably know with Korean horror, it takes a lot of turns. It does it plays with different genres. At one point, it almost kind of is pulling from slasher motifs. It is absolutely phenomenal. I was enthralled through the entire 2-hour runtime, and I think this movie is phenomenal, even with the kind of stinger ending that I did not like.
This looks really cool.
And it's on Netflix. It came out November 27th, and no one is talking about it because I don't think Netflix has even said anything about it.
This isn't happening. They keep dumping things on there that are really good, but like giving it no attention, and it's really frustrating.
It's really frustrating.
They do that with a lot of their international releases too, I think. Like, I feel like they always drop like Asian horror or like a brand new anime series, and they don't say shit.
No, they don't. And I mean, I keep up with the like Netflix's what can you watch next month, and I don't remember seeing this movie. Like, it might have been in the list at the end, but like I don't remember them hyping up this movie at all. And it is a Netflix, like, it has the Netflix original moniker on it, so it's not a movie that they're just throwing on there. It is a Netflix movie here in the States that they're calling it, and it's too good for people not to see. It's just what it does with time, and the way it kind of reminds me in a way. Have you seen what's that one movie? Is it Predestination? No, Looper. You know, Looper, mm-hmm. With like some of the ways of like the guy in the past is killing someone, and then the person starts to lose limbs in the present. Like, there is some stuff that it's playing with in here that is like that, and it's deeply unsettling. It's really horrific, and it's a really well made South Korean horror film that I wish more people would know about and see.
Fuck yeah. Go watch The Call, y'all. I'm going to go watch it now.
Oh, it's so good. I want to hear your thoughts.
Cool.
But yeah, other than that, and then I watched a movie that I thought was going to be kind of this erotic 1990s thriller with like a fish man in it.
Did you call it a cum thriller? Is that what you called it?
Oh my God. For the last time, that word is a preposition, and it means like it's a combination. It's combining the two.
I know, but people are stupid, including myself.
Combined with, also used to describe things with a dual nature or function. A steady cum bathroom. I think it's actually pronounced cum.
Yeah, because cum laude, like with honors or whatever the shit.
But yeah, no, I did that kind of purposely to be kind of cheeky because it was a romantic movie, but like, it is a real word.
I know. I think everyone. It's Twitter. What did you expect?
No nuance. I know, it's funny. I know, it made me laugh. I'm like, yes, I was trying to be a little cheeky, but at the same time, it is an actual word.
Thriller, cum, aquatic, horror, creature feature. So how was it?
It was fine.
Okay.
It wasn't enough of either. Like, I there was a moment where I was like really on board because the man / fish monster literally steps out of the lake in a Speedo, and it like does the sort of like slow pan and focuses on his bulge for a moment as it's like going down his body. So I'm like, oh, I am here for this. And then the second act sort of doesn't really do much of anything. It's fine. It might be worth a rental, but it's not something that I'm going to probably think too much about.
Don't you
Unlike
love that?
The Call.
You watch a movie and you're like, well, I watched it, and then you forget you ever saw it. I feel so bad about that. It's like, that feels like the biggest insult to a movie. Like, it's not even bad enough to remember.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that's going to be the case with here. But, I mean, it does have Mina Suvari in it, and... It'll probably be like somewhat people probably love it because it's probably one of those movies that's like, what the shit? It sounds like one of those like sci-fi movies that is just like very bizarre. Well, it also has the unfortunate, I don't know why they did this, but it has the unfortunate title of What Lies Below, which if you do, I don't know if it's changed, but like before when I was trying to determine whether to get the screener or not, if you did a Google search for What Lies Below, Google will automatically correct you and say What Lies Beneath.
Yeah.
But I think it backfired because I literally could not find What Lies Below when I did a Google search for it because it kept reverting to What Lies Beneath. Like everything on the first 2 pages was What Lies Beneath. So I'm like, this isn't really working in your favor. Maybe it's changed because it's now out, but like when I was trying to do some recon before I requested the screener, I couldn't find a single thing about it.
Cool.
So yeah.
I love that.
But that's it for me.
And this upcoming Monday, we will be talking to Kathy Charles, writer of Castle Freak, out on Shudder already. And we'll be talking to her about Basket Case.
Basket Case. The 1982, I want to say, classic about... What is it about?
A man in a basket.
A man in a basket.
A man in a basket.
And, you know, we recorded this before we've seen Castle Freak, but, like, I'll tell you, the conversation of being able to talk with a woman writing an exploitation film was amazing.
It was so good. It was just so cool to hear the perspective of a woman who's like, I don't want to just write ghost stories. I want to write gross shit. And I love that because I love gross shit.
Yeah.
So it was just so much fun to talk to her about that perspective with horror writing. And also we get to talk about Basket Case, which is like absolutely grotesque. So
you don't need to have seen Castle Freak before the thing, because we don't really get into spoilers, but it is out on Shudder, and you will want to watch Basket Case before then, I would say.
Well, thank you everyone for listening to this week's Little Cuts. It sounds like everyone's enjoying them so far, so we're going to keep doing them.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing that feedback.
Yeah, seriously. So just keep letting us know what you think. I am at MB McAndrews on Twitter.
I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast. And just as a note, you can send us emails. scarredforlife@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. We hear a lot from you on Twitter, but, you know, we want some longer form emails. Ask us some questions. Tell us some stories. Tell us a ghost story. I want to hear some ghost stories. So, you know what? Send us some ghost stories. That's my request.
There you go.
So, yeah. But yeah, interact with us. We love you.
Please. We do. And if you have 2 seconds, please leave us a review or a rating on iTunes.
Please do.
Make sure you're subscribed. That stuff really helps.
Seriously. So thank you to Steve Barnold for our artwork. Thank you, Sean Keller, for our music. Thank you to everyone for listening. Stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time. Oh, I have to stop it. Every time. Every time.
Won't somebody please think of the children? Won't somebody please think of the children? Somebody please think of the children!
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.